Interesting. Okay, so I think we'll go ahead and get started. Introduce Miss Goodman and Miss Gatlin, and they are here today to talk about outdoor education and outdoor learning opportunities. And I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to them.
Great, thanks, Adam. So once again, I'm Lily, and I am I teach science for mostly 8th grade, and I also do STEM, and I also do music, and sometimes I teach PE. And so I'm going to start off today talking about the science behind the positive benefits of nature and how important they are for our students. And then Ms. Gatlin's going to go ahead and start talking about how we can get students out in nature even during a time like this. So I was asked first to introduce a little bit about me and tell you my background and how I got the wacky way I am. And I grew up in an urban area, but I was very fortunate to have a very nice urban area where we had friends, all the neighbors didn't have fences. And so we could walk easily through everybody's yards and we could just play everywhere. And we were outside all the time, and our parents had bells that they would call us in for dinner. We knew to listen for our certain bell around dinner time, and then we'd all go running back. So that was my childhood, was my favorite game to play. Or actually, I would walk home from school every day about 20 minutes, and I loved it when my mom wasn't there and I was locked out of the house, because then I had to pretend that I was living off the land, and I had to drink water through the hose, and I would have to eat sour grass and honey flowers and berries to subsist, and that was really fun for me. So fast forward through time, in 1990 was when I was offered a job. I was living in Yosemite, and I was offered a job to teach 5th and 6th grade at an outdoor education school. And I had been taking kids on trips and stuff before then, but when I started at this school, I really saw the impact when we brought kids up from the inner city to Yosemite, what it did for them. And these kids had really rough lives in the inner city of Merced County, and they were profoundly changed. They would come back as high schoolers to be counselors for the camp, and they would all say it was the best week of their lives. So I really got hooked on sharing nature with students. So fast forward again, and I'm going to share my screen here. And Adam, are you able to make me so I can share my screen? I'm not seeing that option right here. Let's see. Oh, okay, I got that. All right, so I'm going to share screen. So some of you may have remembered when this book came out in 2005 by Richard Louv, The Last Child in the Woods. And he talked about how in modern, more, from 2005, especially to present, kids aren't growing up with the kind of experiences that I had and that Megan had, where we were just wandering around outside all the time. For various reasons, kids aren't being allowed or comfortable going outside to play or walking home from school by themselves, things of that nature. And he coined the word nature deficit disorder. And he came up with many reasons why this was affecting students in a very negative way, affecting kids and grown-ups not to be able to have an experience of nature. So since his book has come out, there has been hundreds of studies linking the positive benefits of nature on people. All the things from concentration and memory, less aggression, huge benefits of stress relief, positive mood, and self-esteem. And we're also seeing attention, more ability to pay attention to things. There have been clinical trials, very rigorous trials showing these effects. I want to tell you about one that was really recent, where they took people and they gave them what they called nature pills. They were nature experiences for various times. Some people had 10 minutes a day, some people had more, and they measured the cortisol and their saliva. And cortisol is actually a stress hormone that we see is linked to things like learning and memory. It decreases your learning and memory, decreases your immune function and your bone density, and increases your blood pressure, your cholesterol, your heart disease, and even your weight. And so it's a really important stress hormone. And they saw that people had nature experiences. They resulted in a 23% drop in this stress hormone per hour. So we now know that these nature experiences are super important. So what are nature experiences anyway? Well, we could think of the guy on the left, you know, sitting in a nice, relaxed, serene setting and taking it all in. I mean, that's the ideal, right? But it doesn't have to be that. It could be students in a schoolyard just measuring a tree, and that has the positive effect. We've all seen that pictures like this Ansel Adams one, and I actually have a whole Ansel Adams book right here, that when I just look at this book, I feel a sense of relaxation, and just, I just feel good when I look at the book. And that's why hospitals put up pictures. But really immersing ourselves in nature is the ideal. And there's actually been studies that have come out that have shown that if you are in the forest breathing in those defensive compounds that trees put out, that your body puts out more natural killer cells, which are the cells that kill cancer in your body. And so there have been so many amazing tests to show the importance, but full immersion in nature where you're smelling, hearing the birds, touching the trees is what we're going for at Stream. So it's not just going outside to play basketball, but actually going out and really interacting with nature. So Megan, I'm going to turn over to you to build upon how we can interact more with nature.
Awesome. That was great, Lily. Love that data and the research. So for those of you that don't know me, I'm Megan Gatlin, and I am one of the founding staff members, proud to be a founding staff member of Stream. I've been there since year one. Like Adam said, I kind of play a lot of roles. I'm our project and track coordinator. I help integrate STEM throughout the curriculum with our teachers, and I also am an instructional coach. And so I kind of have my hands in lots of different areas, but my favorite thing about my job is when we get kids out and we take them, like, for instance, to Arctic Valley for the first time of the year. And I remember the very first time we took kids, you know, we had some kids who had some attention deficit issues, and just watching them forage for berries was the most amazing thing. Like, they were suddenly just immersed, and there was no, we take these kids out and we don't have behavior issues with them because they're suddenly just out there in nature and doing things and busy. And so anyways, that was a profound experience. I came to Stream from a background of teaching science. And I had this hilarious class, my very first year of teaching at Diamond High School, a class of freshmen. It was mostly boys. There was maybe like 3 or 4 girls in the class. If you know about teaching freshmen, it's the last hour of the day and a bunch of boys, and they were rowdy. And so I had a lot of challenges with them, plus being a first year teacher. And I remember one day there was a fire alarm right at the very beginning of 6th hour. So we all had to go outside for 10 minutes while we wait for to be allowed to come back in. And after that 10 minutes, I realized this is what these guys need. After we came back into class, they all sat down in a way that they didn't normally sit down. They were calm, and we actually were able to get through a lesson in a way that we hadn't been able to do before. So I thought to myself, wow, I'm gonna try this out, and I'll see, maybe I get in trouble for this, but I started walking them before class every day. I would walk them around the building, and it was amazing. I might have lost 10 minutes in instructional time every day by taking them on a walk, but I gained at least 30 minutes of instructional time. So that was a really, like, the moment in my life where I was like, kids need this. They need sunshine. They need fresh air. They need to be outside, even if they're just standing, waiting for the fire alarm to come. So that was like one of my experiences that led me to really dig into this work that I do at Stream and helping to get kids outside. So with that, I guess my besides the science teaching background, I grew up in Southeast Alaska. Like Lily said, I spent a lot of time outside. So the Tongass National Forest was my backyard, and the Pacific Ocean was my front yard. And every day, maybe not every day, but most days I was out there until mom would call us in for dinner. And so growing up like that, I really feel like it's, you know, something that's deep in my soul, something I value. And again, something I want to share with our students. And when we do share these things with our students, I see them light up in a way that they don't if they're just sitting in a chair all day. My 3 points that I wanted to bring today to the presentation was I wanted to provide a little bit of local intelligence. I had an interview with the superintendent of Parks and Rec, Steve Rafuse, who's a good family friend of ours yesterday. So I have some information for you, and I want to encourage you guys to get out and do it in a safe way, because I know there's a lot of kind of fears and worries right now. And then, of course, leave you guys with a little bit of inspiration to get out into nature and to be inspired by nature. So first of all, my interview with Steve Rafuse yesterday. The Parks Department is following the parameters that are set out by the mayor's office currently. Yesterday, Mayor Berkowitz announced that we're now slowly beginning to move into phase 1 of his reopening plan. So within phase 1, that really doesn't change things for Parks and Recs. Trails are open, but as you know, you've probably been out or you've seen the yellow tape that's all over the playgrounds. And that is not going to be changing in phase 1 of the opening process. In phase 2, if everything goes correct in the way it's supposed to for phase 1, in 28 days, the municipality will be able to open up those parks. So between now and 28 days, if you are at a park and you see that there isn't tape on the playgrounds, it's because somebody has been ripping the tape down. And Steve said he has a whole group of staff members that go out every day and retape all of the playgrounds because people are ripping them down. So yeah, he just wants people to make sure that they're not being drawn to gather and congregate at these areas. And then within 28 days, if everything goes correct, they'll remove the tape and potentially allow people to come back into them. So with that, he also had a couple of updates on the East Side parks. For those of you who might be interested, the Chauncey Park is going to be entering a phase 2 of its development, where they're going to be adding a fruit garden. What did he say? He had a community garden was the term he used, right? And so also, just so you guys know, when they do put this community garden in, there are fruit trees there. And some of those fruit trees were spliced by our students on year 1. So they have little tags on them that say stream students. The students they've all moved on at this point, but there will be some tags on there that are stream related. And they'll be also putting a dog park in at the Chauncey area. And then Russian Jack is next on the list to be updated and have some new trails paved through, maybe not new trails, but paving the trails that are there and adding some new signage and stuff. So there's just a couple heads up on what's coming up in parks on the East Side. And then Steve just wanted me to reiterate that we should all feel really good right now about what's going on at the local level with the leadership, and that they're taking extreme precautions and they're following the measures step by step. And so when they do open up the parks, we can feel safe that they've done all the work that to allow us to feel safe. If you have other questions about the Muni parks, you can always go to their Muni website. It does have a lot of really good information and trail maps and trail updates and all kinds of really great information. So that was my intel from the Anchorage Department of Parks and Rec that I wanted to share with you guys. So next, I want to kind of talk about safety a little bit before I show you just a couple pictures to leave you with to inspire you to get out. So right now there's a lot of things to think about when you are trying to get out and recreate, and there's different levels. Lily's going to talk about, after I'm done here, about just getting out into your backyard, and then there's the parks within, or I should say the trails that are close to you that you can walk to. But then throughout the whole municipality, we have over 250 miles of trails and lots of green spaces that are available for us to go to, that I have been frequenting the last month myself. So but meanwhile, the first thing that's on everybody's mind right now, of course, is the COVID virus. So I've come up with a couple tips. I've consulted some articles that I've read. And so these tips are things that you can think about as you are planning your trip. So one thing to think about is right now there's lots of people that are trying to get out. And so if you have been out and getting to a trailhead that's during a peak time, you probably noticed there's a lot of other people there. So I just know on Sunday afternoon, I drove down the Turnagain Arm, and some of those trailhead parking lots were more full than I've ever seen them in the 15 years that I've been frequenting those trails. So my first tip would be to plan to go not during a peak time. If it's a sunny Sunday afternoon, maybe you stay close to home, or maybe you go into your own backyard. But if it's morning on a weekday, if you have the luxury to be able to get out during those non-peak times, I found that it's actually very enjoyable and feels a lot safer because there's a lot less people out there. Another tip would be to be flexible. Have a plan B. So if you pull up to a parking lot and you realize that wow, this is really crowded, there's all these people and they're all standing within 6 feet of each other, and this makes me really nervous, I don't want to get out of my car, go somewhere else. So being flexible, knowing where you're going and what your plan B might be would be ideal. If you are driving somewhere, make sure, of course, that you have enough gas with you, that you have enough snacks with you, that everybody has had their potty breaks before you get in the car. That will lessen the chances that you'd have to stop along the way at a gas station. And then, like always, I just want to, of course, take a first aid kit, bear spray, all those things, which brings me to one of the next things that is happening right now, besides the COVID, is that bears are out. And every trail I've gone to in the last 2 weeks has had a bear warning sign on it. So if you are going out, do your homework, be prepared, be safe, take bear spray. And be bear aware is and moose too. For right now, moose are beginning to give birth and have their babies, and no one wants to mess with a mama moose for sure. So safety with the bears and moose, safety with COVID. Another point with the COVID is that the city and the state and at the national level, they're saying get out, but stay 6 feet away from people. So you're on a trail, make sure that you're maintaining your social distance. And if I have seen people with masks out on trails, and so you feel safer doing that, take a mask, and that might also help. Okay, so those are my safety precautions before I show you a couple pictures of places and just talk about couple of my favorite trails. So I'm gonna share my screen really quick. And can everyone see my screen? Yay, okay, great. All right, so this was just a map that I pulled up. I like this map because it shows a lot of space here. There we go. In Anchorage, except why isn't it letting me scroll? There we go. So of course, Stream is located here right around this Muldoon curve. Lots of space here on the east side in the far north Bicentennial Park. I love going here. Right now, there's a lot of bear activity out there. Of course, like I said, I've seen bear activity all over right now, but just again, be aware, lots of trails over here. I was just at Kincaid a few days ago, and I want to show you a picture here. So there is an access area that is off of the Jodhpur Road over here. So you don't go to the main Kincaid Park where there's the chalet, but this Jodhpur Park area takes you to a really cool sand dune area, which I'll show you a picture. Here is my daughter Olive at that Kincaid sand dune area, which is a super unique area because of the sand dune aspect of it. So if you haven't been there, I'd recommend checking it out. You can also access the trails in Kincaid Park through that parking lot as well. And so there is that one right there. Another favorite of mine is heading down Seward Highway along the Turnagain Arm, and I'll just come to this part of the map here. So there's the Turnagain Arm Trail that starts up here by Potter Marshish area and goes all the way down to Windy Point. And then there's another great little bike trail that starts about here, Indian, and goes to Girdwood. So this is the Bird to Gird Trail, and I have a couple images from both of those. This is the Turnagain Arm Trail. Again, this is the one that was super busy this weekend, but this picture was taken midday. I ran into two different couples, one going out, one coming back. So it felt like we were really out there with, well, out there as opposed to, you know, I mean, there's the road right there, but that is my dog, Lewis. This trail is south facing and is often sunny and melted out much faster than other trails in the area. And then just this weekend, my family and I got out, we biked the Bird to Gird Trail a little bit. If you haven't done that yet, it is great. There is some bear activity down along Bird Point at the parking lot where you see the beluga whales. So you have to enter the trail at other places. There's currently, I think, a moose carcass that is resting close by. So let's see, now I've lost everybody. No, come back. Uh-oh. Okay, here we go. Back up. I'm going to stop sharing. Yeah, so that's what I have for you guys. And just want to turn it back over to Lily if you want to talk about specifically more things kids can do in their own yards. And then I'll be around for the rest of this chat. So if you guys have more questions, feel free.
Sure. Those were some really fun pictures, Megan. And I want to say that I also did the Bird to Gird Trail this weekend, and there were so many people that bears were not a concern, but there is that one point. You don't have to worry about that point where the moose carcass is. It's actually not on the main trail, so don't worry. Don't let that deter you. So as Richard Louv pointed out, not everybody has access to a nice backyard, or they don't have parents who can take them places or time to go to an awesome bike ride or something like that. Fortunately, in Alaska, we have wilderness all around us. So we can look at the mountains just by standing on Muldoon with traffic going by. We can still get an amazing experience looking at the mountains. But in our backyards, not everybody has a backyard, but maybe you have a window. I mean, there's a lot of things that students can do. Just growing plants. We have our 8th graders right now growing some plants from seed. Having those sort of interactions are really rich. I mean, you're not going to get an aerobic workout, but you're still getting that interaction with nature. Going outside and looking at stuff growing, the weeds growing up and the bugs, making a bug bingo where there's a challenge to find as many different bugs as you can, things like that have a really important effect on the students. So I want to say that Mr. McKelkey came up with an awesome list of ideas that that students can do just in their backyards. And will you share that with folks right now?
Sure, I will do that. Hold on one second. So this, can you see it?
Yes.
So this is something that we started working on last week, and Miss Gatlin and Miss Goodman, Miss Beyondich all helped to populate it. It's up to 55 things, 55 outdoor activities that you can do, Stream Academy students can do. So we're going to post this on our webpage probably today, and I can also create it like as a PDF or a picture and post it that way and share it. As you can see, what we're attempting to do and what we'll keep working on, even though we'll post it, we can keep developing it, is to hot link every one of these 55 activities. So for some reason, some of the hot links don't turn blue, but this one, like Make a Fairy House, actually has a link to a website, and it's got how to make fairy houses and also lots of shopping ads for buying shoes, which is interesting because I don't buy a lot of shoes. But so yeah, go back over to here. Many of these, most of these, I'd say the majority of these now are hot linked. So parents will be able to go to the 55, or some point it's going to be 60. We'll probably add to it. They'll be able to go to these and hot link for ideas, and some of them are YouTube videos. And so what we tried to do is things that stream students actually enjoy and would actually do, things that we know kids do either in our classes, in Mr. Mosen's PE class, or when Miss Goodman takes her science classes out, you know, when we're out in the park, and stuff we know that kids do that they enjoy doing. So for example, make a teepee or the, you know, make a shelter. That's something that they do in Mr. Perkins' outdoor survival class. Painting rocks, I know our kids have done. And so there was a project this year in Mr. Holsoppel's class on composting, and students came up with ideas for composting and like made their own bins and things. I ended up with a homemade wood, really nice composting bin that a student made and didn't want to take home. And I called Dad and he didn't want it to come back home. So it came home with me. Miss Goodman has students planting seeds right now in her science classes. She's running online. So yeah, we're proud of this, and we'll keep curating and keep perfecting this list. There are some pretty routine things on there, like go for a run or a jog, that, you know, we can take off and put on something a little more creative as we develop the list. So yeah, that's our 55 outdoor activities. We'll send that out. We'll post that up today. We'll get that out to folks, and hopefully it's user friendly.
So we've talked about the science behind why it's important to have interactions with nature. We've talked about how to be safe and where to go and things to do in your backyard. And I would love to have some questions from you, or some discussion from you all about what your experiences are, how you're getting students out, or what are your challenges with getting students out? How can we help you get over those? So if you have any questions about that.
Well, we put up our trampoline, so when they get a little bit too crazy, we send them outside to bounce for a few minutes.
Yeah, the trampoline is so great for students getting their yayas out, and I see a lot of people having them in their backyards now. And sometimes that is interacting with nature in addition to getting, I mean, there's other benefits that we didn't talk about, just getting the endorphins that are produced when you get exercise. That's a whole nother part of it. So important. The trampoline, sometimes depending on where our backyards are, we get both of them at the same time. So, great.
Our challenge is much more with the academic stuff. They're happy to go outside. They spend all day outside.
Yeah, and we've seen that really helps with the academics, as Megan mentioned, helping with their attention. And see, students with ADHD are really helped by the interactions with nature as well. So it sounds like you're doing the right thing there. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Adam or Megan, if you had anything to add. And Adam, I think you're on mute still.
Yeah, I would just add.
Go ahead, Megan.
Oh, go ahead, Adam.
Sorry, I was on mute. I was talking. I kind of wanted to take this, to circle this back to the beginning, or to the big picture. So I shared with my screen one of the like logos or graphics that we've been using a lot. And so in our staff, when we're doing professional development in our meetings, we talk frequently, this probably comes up weekly, about the 3 circles or the 3 pillars of Stream Academy. And they're big pillars. They're big educational philosophies or ideas, and hard to pull off all 3 as a school, but we strive for them. And so one is project-based learning. We try to incorporate everything that we teach and do, we try to incorporate into projects. 2 is STEM. We infuse STEM across the curriculum and have a very STEM focused approach to everything that we do. Our students have a STEM elective. All of our students take a STEM elective every year in addition to their open elective. And then that 3rd pillar, that 3rd circle, is outdoor and experiential education, which is really what we're focusing on here today. And if you can kind of see like where the circles overlap, we'll do this exercise sometimes as a staff where I put these circles up and on the whiteboard, and staff will write things into these gaps where they overlap that they're doing. So I'll ask staff to share things you're doing that are both project-based and, involve outdoor and experiential education, or that are STEM and project-based. And then we call this middle part of the circle, really, I call that the sweet spot. And I kind of geek out and talk about how, like, when we hit this middle part where all 3 of those things we do something that involve all 3 of those circles, like the skies part and a ray of sunlight comes down, and we've got that, we've hit that magical sweet spot in the middle. And I have to say again, honestly, almost always when I'm talking about this, Miss Goodman is one of the examples. She is one of the teachers that is just masterful at creating lessons and units and projects that do this, that hit all 3 of those aspects, that it's very hands-on, project-based, that it involves STEM, it involves science, technology, engineering, or math, and that she always strives to involve that outdoor experiential element. So, that's kind of that big picture piece I wanted to share. The outdoor experiential part is so important to us. And Megan and Miss Goodman talked about, it's not an accident that most of our staff, if not all of them, will talk about how formative outdoor world and outdoor experiences in their lives are for them. That's by design, and that's my background as well. I grew up in small towns in rural Alaska, hunting, fishing, exploring. We lived in small cabin until I was 11 or 12 years old. Small cabin without running water or electricity. We hauled water and split wood, and so very much a part of my education, major part of my education growing up was living and being in the outdoors and in the outdoor world. And so that's, I think, formative for all of us, and it's really deeply ingrained in our school. And Miss Goodman talked about just that, how important it is to get kids outside and give them those experiences. And those are some of my favorite things that we do. The trek we take, we didn't do it this year, the trek we take to Lake Eklutna with all the driftwood on the shore. And I always take the group that's building shelters and forts out of driftwood and just spend the entire day with kids hauling logs around and setting up shelters and forts. It's so cool and so good for you. And it's such an important element of education that, Ms. Goodman talked about Richard Louv in his book. And that's sort of one of those fundamental, that's a foundational text for Stream Academy. When we started the school, I bought copies of that book for everyone that we hired and just handed them a copy and said, if you're going to work here, you need to read this. And so I think almost everyone that's worked at Stream has been handed that book at some point. It's a fundamental pillar of what we do. I think our founders had that vision also. I think Scott Cleaver was a great, sort of missionary for that vision. And we talk about getting kids outside every day. And I like to tell parents, we're serious about that. We are serious about outdoors every day, even when it's really cold. And Mr. Mosen is a great champion for outdoors every day. It's 10 below and he's coming into my office saying, hey, it's 10 below. It's optional. We don't make kids go outside, but I'm still going to take them outside if they want to go. And I say, yep, absolutely. That's what we do. And most of the kids choose to go. When most of the kids say, yeah, I want to go outside. And they love it. So Yeah, I just wanted to kind of come back to the big picture and, you know, that philosophical foundation that we try to live every day. It's part of what makes Stream Academy so special and so unique. Sometimes I'll say, you know, Stream Academy is what I needed and I wished middle school was when I was 12, 13 years old. We're outside every day. We're in the woods. We're building things. We're making things. We're doing things. I can't remember a single thing I was taught in middle school, sorry, but I can tell you in vivid detail about my science projects because we did a science fair every year. And I can tell you about my 6th, 7th, and 8th grade science projects down to all the research I did one on center of gravity. I could spend 15 minutes telling you about that. So if you get kids outside and doing things, learning and experiencing outdoors, they remember that and their brains are activated and they learn. If you get kids doing hands-on project-based learning where they're discovering and exploring and doing research and they have that added pressure that causes us to perform as humans of presenting that product back to an audience, they remember, they really learn. Their brains are really triggered by those things. So I think it's what middle school is meant to be, and it's super cool. So, Miss Goodman, Miss Gatlin, you guys did an awesome job sharing. Thank you so much. I'm gonna just kick it back and see if you guys want to say anything else or add on that, or if anyone else wants to just chime in.
Well, I just wanted to say during this closure time, the students don't have stream to get them outside. And a lot of students are having a hard time, and that's real. And I think the most important thing we can do for our students right now is tell them to go study those blades of grass that are growing out of the sidewalk.
Definitely. Miss Gatlin, you have any final thoughts or anything you want to add?
I agree with what Lily said. Just let the kids, get them outside, exploring, seeing what's going on, and probably preaching to the choir. Parents who put their kids in stream know that that's what we do, and you guys are probably already doing it. So encourage your kids' friends to do it, or just spread the love.
Don't be afraid to make them do it. I have middle school age children. And I know sometimes when I say, hey, we're taking a break, you guys need to go outside for a while, there's some moaning and groaning. And if you ignore that, if you ignore the initial verbal response from middle schoolers, you'll be surprised at the results. Because what I've found is the moaning and groaning sometimes will happen no matter what. And then if you get them to go ahead and do what you're asking them to do, then they still enjoy it. So they might complain about going outside, and then 5 minutes later you look out there and they're having a blast. So don't be afraid to say, nope, I'm the parent, you're going to go outside, and then take a peek out there, and I bet you they're playing and having fun, and already forgot that they were groaning about it.
Yeah, Adam, before we even got started with teaching distance education, you put out this really great schedule for the students to help them with their day. And one of the things on the schedule was the first thing that they did was to go outside. Yes. Before, I think maybe even before breakfast, I can't remember. And so I really like that. And so that's what I do with my own students. They wake up, when they get out of, and we have a wake up time, and then I say, hey, go outside. And they're just supposed to be outside for 10, 15 minutes before they even start their work. I think that really helps.
Yeah, I do too, definitely. Mr. Mosen, you're quiet today. You do so much at Stream to get our kids outside. You are such a champion and an advocate for getting kids outside and getting kids moving. Do you want to chime in, or just kind of share with us some of the things you do?
Yeah, I appreciate everyone here and out in YouTube land hanging in there. It's a pleasure to work with people when they're speaking. You're like, yeah. So I'm not, it's just nice. I agree with what's been said, and that's driven my life career is believing in the power of being outside and immersing in natural places. That's what brought me to Alaska. on a non-natural note, I am doing 2 workouts this week, Wednesday and Friday at 10 o'clock. And we are social beings. Sometimes I need to make a date to work out, or I will just sit and stare or do nothing. And you know, because we all have times when we just can't get motivated. And so I make a date, 10 o'clock on Wednesday. We have Professor Gable from the University of Alaska doing a rhythm workout with sticks. And then Friday, Fitness Friday, just a warm up, workout, cool down. And they're great. There's nothing I would want more for these except more participation. So if anybody has any ideas on how to get more students there, I'm inviting 140 students. If you're interested in seeing the invite, there's a number of ways to see it on Google Classroom, but every week, Mr. Perkins, Ms. Goodman, and I make a video announcing what's happening in PE and health. And they're kind of funny to look at. And there's essentially 3 things. We have an activity log. We have a brain pop lesson. This week it's on puberty, which should get a lot of attention. And we have workouts. So every week for PE and health, we have those 3 things. Keep an eye out on them. If your students are struggling with some academics, need a break, you know, suggest the 10 o'clock workout if it doesn't interfere with something else they're doing, and or have them do something where they can put on their activity log. And it's hard when we're not in person because I can't physically shoo them out the door or get them moving and stuff. And so my biggest struggle is just getting more people involved, and all parents are welcome, and the students don't have to have their video on at first if it's intimidating. Just have them show up and see what people are doing. But thanks, you guys. That's all I got.
Awesome. Thank you, Mr. Mosen. Well, we are coming close to the end of morning coffee. I think this was a great session, and I really appreciate everyone sharing. I want to put in a plug for Thursday's morning coffee. Mrs. Beyondich is our presenter, and she will be talking about and guiding parents through online registration. So everyone has to do their online registration, and the sooner the better. And so Miss Beyondich will help with that and show everyone how to do that. And we also have a special guest, Mrs. Johnson, the principal of Highland Academy, is going to be on. And so we hope that that's enticing for some of our parents of 8th graders who have students going on to high school, because we do have students who go from Stream to Highland because they go through high school. And we recognize they also have a middle school, and sometimes students switch from Highland to Stream in 6th or 7th grade, and sometimes they switch from Stream to Highland. And so we're okay with that, because you know, charter schools are all about choice, school choice, and really we want students and families to choose the school that's the best fit for them. And we're really confident that we're the best fit for the kids we got. And so, you know, if 6th or 7th grade parents want to listen in, we're okay with that. But mostly Mrs. Johnson will be on to talk about Highland Academy and what they do. And so if you're interested in, you know, after 8th grade, staying with a small charter, small classes, really individualized learning, then I encourage you to come on and learn more about Highland. So that's what we've got on the docket for Thursday. Do you want to say any more about online registration and kind of preview what that's going to look like, Ms. Beyondich?
Online registration has already opened. Registration's an annual event. It's not like enrolling. Enrolling is the first time you enter a district, or if you're returning to a district. All of our families are already enrolled, but everybody has to do registration once a year, and that just answers all those annual questions and updates forms. If you're comfortable doing it now, just go ahead and do it. If you want to wait and see the presentation on Thursday, that's fine also. And then of course you can always call the school at 742-9000. It's coming directly to my phone. and I will answer it until 8 o'clock at night when I turn it off. And or you can email us at our last name _ our first name. So Beyondich _ Sylvia at asdk12.org. And we'll be happy to answer your questions.
Awesome. Looking forward to that. Should be a fun morning coffee and helpful, useful for everyone. Next week, we're into May. I can't believe that. Things went so slow when everything shut down because of the virus. And I saw a lot of memes and jokes about something to the effect of like, it's been a long year, January's a long month, and February was 3 months and March was 3 years. So I know March, April, like really kind of drug for folks when we got all cooped up and all of that. But then all of a sudden it seems to have picked up speed and the momentum, because I can't believe that Friday we're going to be into May. So next week, on Tuesday, May 5th, we have one of our APC members, Jen Mickelson, and she's been involved with Stream and known our founders for a long time. And she works at Migrant Ed, and she's going to talk about resources for Migrant Ed kids and what migrant education is. And so if you're not familiar or you're wondering, I'm always surprised by how many people qualify for Migrant Ed that really wouldn't think or realize they qualify for Migrant Ed. And there's also a real common misconception that Migrant Ed has an income cap or income limit, because when we think about the purpose of Migrant Ed originally, to serve and protect migrant families, migrant working families, families who may have traveled for different seasons for work, for harvesting, and so forth. Sort of that idea that we've got, that it's it's a financial support, and that is part of it, but really it's for any families who work or subsist and travel a significant different distance from their home base. So for example, my kids, my own children, always qualified for Migrant Ed forever, because I for a long time in my life I fished Bristol Bay in the summer. Not anymore. My back won't allow that, and principal jobs kind of basically go year round really for me now. But because I traveled to Bristol Bay for work, and because we did subsistence fishing, always qualified. If you take your kids, down the Kenai Peninsula, and set up shop and put fish away, you qualify. That's a qualifier for Migrant Ed. So I'm always surprised. I think 90% of the people who qualify out there have no idea or don't think they would qualify. And there are resources available. Migrant Ed has its federal funding. So it's money from the federal government, specifically earmarked and only able to be used for those families and those kids and those resources. And I mean, honestly, to be quite honest, like sometimes they have trouble allocating all those funds and just finding enough people who will fill out the form and qualify for it. So hopefully I didn't just do Jen Mickelson's whole presentation for her, but I would really encourage families to learn more about migrant education on Tuesday. And then on Thursday, so we do on Wednesday next week, we will be doing a Zoom session for our new incoming lottery families and welcoming new families to Stream. And that's really exciting. That's Wednesday night next week, the 6th. And then Thursday, we'll kind of focus on that for our morning coffee. We'll talk about new Stream families. We'll talk about the second lottery being open. We do have some seats for some specific spots. We do want to keep encouraging people to put their names in the lottery. So that's our lineup for coffees next week. The following week, we're going to have two of our founders who are educators presenting on trauma-informed care and how that kind of applies, trauma education applies to the situation we're all living in now, being cooped up at home and so forth. So yeah, that's the lineup for morning coffees coming up, and we're always open to ideas, to guest presentations. like today, Ms. Goodman and Ms. Gatlin did a great job of filling time, and that was still maybe 30 to 40 minutes at the most. Most of our guest presentations and guest spots are, really 15, 20 minutes, so we can have multiple people on. We can have 3 or 4 different topics. So we're still open to adding things. If you have ideas, if you have things that you guys want to hear about or you think would be good for parents to hear about, please let us know. And we'll work on getting that. So, all right. Any questions or comments or anything anyone wants to share today?
One of our parents, while we were talking, went on to the Anchorage Public Library's website and found that there is a digital copy of The Last Child in the Woods. It's available. Well, it was available. He checked it out. So now you can put yourself on the wait list if you are interested in reading that book, The Last Child in the Woods.
And I think I usually try to keep a copy, if not a couple, in my office, and I might have to purchase a couple more because I give them out. But when I'm back in the office, I usually have a copy that I can lend if parents are interested in that. So it's a book we like. It's like I said, it's foundational to our school. I think some of our founders did like a training or a workshop with Richard Louv. I think maybe Cleaver and Scott McKim did something directly with Richard Louv at one point. So, yeah. All right. Well, I think we're going to start to wrap up morning coffee. Thank you all so much for being with us, for joining us. Those of you that are watching on the YouTube channel, or for those who, Sylvie's out of coffee. For those who watch this later, one of the cool things we found with streaming it on YouTube is that it saves that, archives it on YouTube, and people go back and watch that later. So if you're watching this at another point, thanks for joining us and watching. And everybody, I hope you have a great day. I hope I see you guys all back on here on Thursday morning.
Adam, can you stop the live stream now?
Oh yeah.